afternoon, Chairperson, judges, impartial timekeeper, colleagues and friends. I'm here today to propose a motion that the best platform to receive world news is through online media sources. So again, we're going to start by defining that down a little bit for you. So by best, we're in no means saying this is the only way, just that it is the best platform to use. And when we're talking about receiving world news, we're talking about reading, watching video, looking at pictures, all form part of the news story. And this news is being received by UK citizens, and for the time being, that includes our lovely Scottish friends. By online media sources, we are defining that as the BBC news site and online apps. Ricky is going to take us through some of the key benefits of using these online platforms. He's going to talk to you about the speed of delivery, how quickly we can now get our news. He's going to talk to you about the accuracy and the way that we can keep that information up to date. And he's going to talk to you about just how accessible it is to get our world news received into the UK. Ben is then going to do his usual sterling job of talking you through the second half of our argument, which is the fact that the BBC is a rare beast, it is impartial, it's publicly funded, it's highly regulated, it is the most respected global news site. They are able to filter the information and give us the highest quality news stories straight into our inboxes, our laptops, our phones. So please listen carefully and join with me in supporting the motion that the best platform to receive world news is through online media sources.
Thank you for staying with us. Chairperson, esteemed judges, UK and Scottish people, and those who's also here to support us all. We oppose the motion that the best platform to receive world news is through online sources. Now, I will give my hands to you that you've made it so narrow and you're obviously very scared of what we're going to come up with. I don't blame you, but we've still got the better point, so we're okay. Now, what we are saying is that it's not the best way at all. It will always be good in some cases, of course, but what we are arguing at the core here is that it's how the recipient wants to receive the information. There is no single one best way. That's clearly why media organisations have multiple platforms. And Patrick, our first speaker, will explain about quality control. So we are glad that it is just going to be discussed on the UK and those apps, but we still have plenty to say on this. And Patrick will also speak about the media platforms as discussed. And then Amy has a whole host of amazing points coming up. She's going to speak about exclusivity, accessibility and connectivity. She's going to speak about disability and the fact that there are people in the UK, I'm so glad it's defined that way, that are actually illiterate and don't have access. She's going to speak about another trusted site that was missed and why we feel it can be as good as, doesn't need to be better. And fundamentally, online media is only instant if you actually see it. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but I run my own business and I've not even been near my phone because I'm either drunk or hungover this whole conference 24 hours a day. So if I go on Facebook now, that's going to be so out of date, so it's not actually instant. I hope you have fun and we beg you join us in opposing the motion that the best platform to receive world news is through online media sources.
Mr. Chair, fellow judges and our opponents. I'd like to take you through the three aspects again that our esteemed team captain described: speed, accuracy and accessibility. But before I do that, I just want to put into your minds, actually, we are all, as a message, content creators. We have some influence on news and how it comes into a domain. So just think about that. Speed. Papers are reactive. News has already happened. Having news that comes in fast through an online platform like bbc.co.uk News and the apps, we can be already knowledgeable and updated before an event has actually happened. And an example of that, I suppose, would actually look at the recent elections. You could see the councils that have declared their position. You can see the poll updated. Sorry, I'm just going to continue. You can see the actual commentary that goes behind this is the number, and you look at one of the key politicians' faces, and you can see the whole emotion that's behind it. So speed is one of the key aspects of online platform, to be able to receive. And just linking into that, accuracy. So how does it link in? Well, I just got a BBC feed. A single-handed Scottish sailor, rower, has just hurt himself. He was going to row 3,400 miles from New York down to the Northern Isles, on the Western Isles, and he's just been injured. And, sorry, I've just got to take this. I've just seen he's been rescued. He used a satellite phone, and now he's safe. He's just been rescued 50 miles from New York, and he's been taken back. So he had to abandon his voyage. That is accuracy, the development of news as it builds up. And that will help us understand things in real time, more or less real time. Finally, accessibility. Yes, agree. There's certain people who cannot access data, but accessibility through going to a country which actually doesn't have a UK paper and being able to access our news, UK and world news, through our app. Look, I was just in the hotel. They tried to charge me €4 to get a British paper, to get the news. So I hope you can see the benefits of having this particular online platform for our purposes of understanding.
We have a very tight motion indeed today. In fact, it could safely be described as tight as a cat's backside. Sometimes when you try and tightly define a motion, you over-tighten it. It's a bit like my trousers. Sometimes they can be a bit too tight. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what's happened with the proposition today. The motion before us now is that the best platform in the UK to receive world news is through the BBC website. That's what we're talking about now, ladies and gentlemen. And the case is not being made for it. Now, the first speaker for the proposition spoke about speed. Now, speed isn't a BBC characteristic. Everybody who's online has got speed. So I don't see how that, frankly, moves their argument forward about the BBC website 1 inch. The second bit we had is about accuracy. Now, that takes me on to the first point that Leanne has set out for me, the quality control. There is a tradition in Britain that anti-beep knows best. We have this image of a lady with really impenetrable undercoats, and she represents a staid, stuffy BBC. You can trust anti-beep, except you can't always trust anti-beep. Anti-beep, although they try and maintain, the BBC, though it maintains distance from the UK government, is funded by a tax, the licence fee. It is seen by a large amount of people within Britain as an apparatus of the British state. And so we don't take it on trust. There are large elements of the diverse society in the UK who prefer not to get their news from the BBC. They find that the best way for them to get news is from other sources, other online sources. And as Leanne has said, it's all about the recipient. Now, the other point that's been made by the proposition speaker was about accessibility, because the BBC website is accessible everywhere. But again, ladies and gentlemen, every website is accessible if you've got a connection. There's no more super accessibility for the BBC site than you'll get for any other site. You know? So, ladies and gentlemen, accessibility and speed aren't arguments for this motion at all. They're not arguments. They might have been arguments for the motion as originally defined, but we don't have that motion now. We've got this motion. And so all that we talk about is accuracy. And we don't accept that the BBC is a hallmark of accuracy. We say it's for the recipient to decide what's best for them. It's for the recipient to decide who they trust on accuracy. Now, the final point that Leanne set out for me was media platforms. If we are to take that the best platform is the BBC website, you have to ask, why is the BBC spending a fortune on TV and radio, as my colleague Amy is going to go on and discuss? Why does every successful media company have as many platforms as they can? Because they know it's the recipient who counts. It's the recipient who decides what's the best way for them to receive news. So leave it to the recipient. The best platform is what the recipient wants, not the BBC website. We are proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Chairman, Deputy Chair, Opposition, Judges, Friends. I'd just like to start by coming back on the point my esteemed colleague on the Opposition made. I was under the impression you were the first speaker, not a secondary captain, because there was no new arguments put forward in that at all. You basically just lined out what Amy, as your second speaker, was going to say. I'm still actually confused as to what you're bringing forward to the table at that point. You gave no examples to back up your argument. There was no points whatsoever that were made, and I think it was pretty much ignored. Today, I'm going to talk about the fact BBC News is impartial. It is a world-renowned brand. It is seen as impartial. It is respected across other news organisations as being the one bastion of true journalism. It's publicly funded, so it doesn't have any political ideal or agenda. Unlike other big, similar-sized news platforms in the UK, such as Sky News, which is part of the Murdoch empire. It is regulated as well by an impartial body, the BBC Trust. There is accountability for every single one of us. If we want to question what is put on there, we can instantaneously by the forums and feedback there, or, if we prefer, a more formal approach of a written letter. And, of course, the classic points of view. Also, as a network, it is fantastic. It has correspondents embedded around the world that are actually giving the true facts of what's happening to you, rather than what people want you to hear. And they can...
Make the case why their network of correspondents is better than any other news organisation in the world who have correspondents. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, all of these people have exactly the same resources that you've described. So why is it the case that the BBC is the best for people in the UK?
The best for the people in the UK because it's such a trusted brand. It's the defining one. It's what people come to. The reason the network is better is because those journalists that are embedded in those places have the BBC ethos and values of true independent journalism. No, you take my time now, thank you. So as I say, they sort fact from fiction, just deliver you the key point of what you need to know. You can dig around further, but the accuracy is amazing, and you get what you expect.
You said the accuracy is perfect and they dig around and they're embedded. I agree. But they're the same correspondents that are on our TV screens for BBC News. So why is that any better than online? You're making the case for the BBC. Well, I'm saying it's better.
I'll see you now, so 10 seconds now. Well, they are better. The BBC News channels are there as an alternative form, but it is not instantaneous like the website is. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I ask you to support this motion.
Gentlemen, judges, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just come back on a few of those wonderful points that my esteemed colleagues on the proposition have made there. And I think my favourite one there is trusted brand. A few of us might remember, those of us who were maybe in the UK at the time, that not long ago Newsnight was nearly shut down. Newsnight on the BBC. That's because the BBC, on one of the renowned news programmes, accused Lord McAlpine of paedophilia. Incorrectly. They accused him of a heinous crime incorrectly. Within 24 hours, had to apologise, and the whole programme of the British establishment was nearly shut down. The BBC is not beyond repute. I would like to make a couple of points about the BBC in general. First of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about accessibility. The proposition has said that Britain's very accessible, that we can all get online, that it's instantaneous, that it's great. Well, I'm from Scotland, and if you go much beyond the central belt in Scotland, to say the Highlands or up to Ullapool or the islands, there is not broadband. Let me be clear, there is no broadband.
Point of information.
Please.
There are now satellite companies now working within consumers like yourself that will now give you access to...
I accept that, but it's not universal in the north of Scotland or in the islands. So, your apps might be fine, and they're there, but you can't access them everywhere in the UK. That is of key importance, and that's why it's so important that we don't just have this one best platform, but that we have lots of platforms, as my colleagues have very clearly stated. Let's make a second point. It's a point about instantaneous. How quickly can you get it? Well, as Leanne said, it's only if you see it. But okay, Leanne may have been a little drunk and hungover, and so we could say it's her fault that she couldn't see it. What about if you're driving? Or if you're commuting? In Britain, you can't use your phone while you're driving.
Points of information.
No, thank you. I've taken one from your team. If you are driving, you need another source of news. You're on your way to work, you're in the car. You probably have the radio on to tell you about the traffic problems. It might be BBC Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The point is, there are lots of other sources, and that just to have a single source of online is unacceptable in the UK. There are people who cannot afford broadband, people who do not have access to broadband, and people who legally cannot use broadband at certain times because of their current activities. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you, I beg you to oppose this motion.
So I thought we set out quite clearly at the beginning what the structure of our argument was going to be. Now I hope you stayed with me because there was 2 sections. Everybody okay? Because I think there was a bit of struggling going on over here. First part of our argument, we spoke about why online. We're not talking about BBC as a whole. At that point, we're talking about the BBC News website, and we went through and explained to you why online sources are faster. They're not reactive, they're proactive. You can see things in real time. Ricky very clearly explained the ways that we can actually start to see those news stories develop. We can get in touch, we can be content creators, we can get the story straight. And when they are wrong, we can go back and we can complain. The accessibility. We never said accessible for every single person in the UK. We're talking about best, and best is never best for all. We're talking about the best overall for citizens in the UK. And then we moved on to part 2 of our argument, which was to say why the BBC news site is the best of the available online sources. And we spoke very clearly. Ben took us through why the BBC is a trusted brand. He took us through the impartiality and the regulation. The opposing team mentioned what happened on Newsnight. Within 24 hours, they were brought to their knees and made to apologise. Have you ever seen that happen when someone makes those allegations on Twitter? We have regulation, we have accountability. Because it's a trusted brand, we can set the story straight. So I beg you today, support our motion and show that the best overall platform for citizens in the UK to receive their world news is through online media sources, being the BBC site. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I have to start by saying the only 2 arguments I heard throughout the whole debate were speed and accuracy. Straight away, both my colleagues instantly said how the speed and accuracy wasn't actually accurate with just the BBC website and its app. I will start by Ricky and Ben, who actually had the exact same points. They said the same, we proved it wasn't accurate. Patrick told you that BBC website is not the only fastest website. Patrick said anti-Beeb is not trusted by everyone in the UK. There are other online sources. Every website is accessible. Patrick had about 6 points that unfortunately Ben didn't even hear. So, yes, there's regulation with that site, but it is not the best, and that is what we have been certainly arguing. So only 2 points, both of which were quashed. Amy then did give a great example of the Newsnight, because you asked us for examples, so we wanted to help you out. And there are so many areas, and I might add, these areas in Scotland, the Highlands, they are actually highly populated. It's not just remote areas, and they can't access the BBC website or the news platform. So accessibility clearly means it can't be the best platform. And then in Alona's summary there, she said best overall for UK citizens. I wasn't actually in the stating definition, and that was one hell of a strong opinion to say for all UK citizens. I would not want to say that and exclude so many citizens that we do have. What we are fundamentally saying throughout this whole debate is that the best platform is that which the recipient chooses to receive, not what we can assume all UK citizens actually want to receive. Based on everything you have heard, we beg you oppose the motion that the best platform to receive world news is through online media. Thank you.